And when they finally got the PCT established as part of the Pacific Crest Trails system, or the National Scenic Trails Act, I'm sorry. That was fantastic. But even when they did that, it still wasn't complete. It still was just a pipe dream. The Appalachian Trail had money, had prestige, had been there for a couple hundred years. Pacific Trail was a newcomer on the block. It was nothing. But he wrote, he was constantly, like I said, he did not come home and watch TV. He did not come home and have a hobby of going fishing. He did not come home from work. The PCT was his work. The PCT was his life. But he balanced. He balanced that. He took me to Y&D guides. He took my brother. We went scouting. We went on trips. When I became a swimmer, and almost a good one, he was right there. He did and both. I don't know to this day how little he slept, but I always remember him sleeping almost nothing and just constantly going. It was a drive I wish I only had 1/10 of. He was just amazing. No, we were always there as part of the family to support Dad. Paul, Candy, and I, and especially Mom. Mary was fantastic. She worked in the front office. She was his girl Friday. She was his executive secretary. She was his mentor. She was his confidant. She was his advocate. She was everything. They were a team. He could not have done it without her, and I don't think they could have done it without us. My dad gave credit to Clarke. We give credit to Dad. Dad needed something done. Dad needed something printed. Dad needed an errand. Dad needed some layouts. Dad needed some linotype set. Dad needed some printing, 50,000 of this, 25,000 of that. We did layouts. We did photo shoots. Dad needed some photographs. But we went and did it. Came home. You okay, Dad? Everything cool, Dad? Okay, we'll be back when you need something. The actual communication, the actual knowing all the people in that time frame, I was a teenager. I've got stories of people that would come from, Australia to visit us. And they brought us house gifts. This is a real outdoors boomerang, not the kind that comes back. I was told this is and it's been used a few times. There's notches all over it. But this is a hunting boomerang, and it's mainly a throwing stick. But this was given to my dad, now it's in our custody, from a wonderful couple that came over from Australia, the outback, to visit and hike the trail.
In 1970, the Pacific Crest Trail Council held its first meeting, and Eric Ryback is the first known person to thru-hike the trail in one season with only 5 resupply points and an 80-pound pack.
As a Canadian jetliner soared over the Cascades, I saw them below me as a sleeping monster, its jagged back blanketed with snow. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, June 10th, 1970, when I mounted the approach trail to the Pacific Crest and the American border. Exhausted, frozen and hungry, I decided that Hopkins Pass had to be my biovac for the night, even though there was still a few hours of daylight remaining. A few thousand feet beyond was Lakeview Ridge, which would put me at the very summit of the range, but between me and the ridge was steep, unmarred ice field extending 2,000 feet up to the summit. My thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a new sound that rose over the whistle of the wind. Turning towards the sound, I saw the pack of snarling coyotes cross the frozen Hopkins Lake. A deer was trapped among them, its brown coat changing color with the blood that seeped from its wound. The deer stumbled and fell onto the ground as the coyotes continued their assault. I watched their butchery in horror until it struck me that the same thing could happen to me. It wasn't likely, I knew that. Still, the grim scene below upset and frightened me. I decided to move to Lakeview Ridge and get the ice field between me and the coyotes. I approached the ice field and found that it was a plain of packed snow, a giant crested snowdrift reclining at 75 degrees angle from the ridge to the bank of the lake below. The large black boulders at the edge of the lake were a chilling sight. If I fell, there wouldn't be much left of me after I struck the rocks. I pressed my boot into the smooth icy snow, gaining a secure foothold. Then I stepped forward and pressed the other foot into place. Cutting footholds into the snow with my boots at every step and zigzagging my way up to the snowy incline, I could feel my complete exhaustion. It would be a 20-mile day when I finally made it to the top of Lakeview Ridge. When I finally reached the middle of the field, I began to have the feeling I wasn't going to make it, but I kept going, forcing myself to take each cautious step. I had perhaps 10 feet to go when I gathered all my waning strength and thrusted forward to reach the firm footing of the ridge, losing my leverage. I fell and began sliding helplessly down the icy surface on my pack like a bobsled out of control. I remember seeing the entire panorama of the Cascades blurred before me and the dark boulders at the bank of the Hopkins Lake rushing towards me. Suddenly the pack jerked, forcing one of the 4-inch extensions of the aluminum frame into the snow. I acted instantly and instinctively, throwing all my weight to the right and driving the pole further into the pack slope. Afraid to move a muscle, I lay frozen in both body and mind. Only my heart reacted, pounding painfully and telling me I was still alive. As I lay huddled and exhausted on top of 7,000 feet of rock, swept by wind and snow, 2,000 miles away from home, I thought of my high school classmates, who were perhaps at that very moment receiving their diplomas at the ceremony I passed up to be on this icy peak in Washington. On October 16, 1970, I completed my journey. The sun was hot, my brain and body were numb. I thrust my foot through the fence and touched Mexican soil, and then it was over. The experience was crowded in my mind and burned into memory for the rest of my life.